Tonight, Trump takes over.
I was saved by God to make America great again.
As he returns to the White House, what's in store for the rest of the world? And what do Scots make of it all?
We're more and more dependent on America, and unfortunately Donald Trump, being a businessman, he knows that.
He's got a lot of power, and he's going to affect a lot of countries.
Trump says America's entering a golden age, also making the headlines all spruced up. Glasgow's council leader says the city doesn't need a birthday bath as it celebrates 850 years.
We clean all the time, and I think we need to make this absolutely clear. We are constantly cleaning the city.
A pest from the west, a weather warning. We're about to be hit by a big winter storm from the Atlantic. And Celtic's Ernie Engels says players believe they belong in the knockout stages of the Champions League. I'm Kellyanne Woodland. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. In the last hour, Donald Trump has been sworn in as the 47th President of the United States. He says he aims to bring a new era of American success. In the build-up to taking office, he's spoken of plans to introduce tariffs on all imports to the country, something that could prove costly for industries like Scotch whisky. While Trump has, of course, long been a divisive figure on both sides of the Atlantic. Our senior reporter Gordon Cree is at the American consulate in Edinburgh for us tonight. And Gordon, the new occupants of the White House could prove significant for Scotland.
Yes, it's actually pretty quiet here tonight in contrast to the scenes of 8 years ago when Donald Trump was first inaugurated. There were protests, but as the ceremonies go on in Washington, D.C., where in the last hour he became president for the second time, he'll now be heading with the vice president into the signing room as the formalities continue. On this side of the Atlantic, I don't see there being any surge in support for him. I think there's more a sense of resignation from a lot of people. But for politicians, both at Holyrood and Westminster, who've previously had antipathy to him, they are now striking a much more measured tone, and that is in no small part because of the need to do a trade deal.
The President-elect of the United States, the Honorable Donald John Trump.
While his last inauguration saw wild claims about just how big the crowds in Washington were, this time the ceremony has been taking place inside, a result of freezing weather conditions.
The golden age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish and be respected again all over the world. We will be the envy of every nation, and we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer. During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first. My life was saved for a reason. I was saved by God to make America great again.
In Ayrshire, Donald Trump isn't just a politician, he's an investor. He bought the Turnberry Golf Resort a decade ago and employs hundreds of people. It's been the scene of protests down the years, but one of the region's leading business figures says whatever view you have of the new president, the economic links mean good relations are vital.
We export £6 billion annually to the United States. And when you think 25% of our inward investment comes from the United States, employing 115,000 people in Scotland, over 600 and approximately 50 companies, that's worth fighting for and driving forward that economic benefit for our people and communities in Scotland.
Trump often talked up his Scottish roots when he was planning his golf course at the Many Estate in Aberdeenshire.
Let's go to the 14th.
So what does your gut say, Mr.
That development was controversial too.
Hey! Ho! Donald Trump has got to go!
But one of those who followed it at the time now counts himself as a friend of the president.
I think people in Britain would love some of that energy, some of that drive, some of that enthusiasm, something we're desperately lacking in the UK at the moment. We need people like him. We need business people like him.
President Trump's America First agenda has included threats of tariffs on everything being imported into the USA. With Scotch whisky sales there around the £1 billion mark each year, that could make it much more expensive. But the industry is taking a cautious position for now. The Scotch Whisky Association saying it looks forward to building links with the president to create jobs and investment. That's a position shared in government, even among those who've previously been Trump critics.
We look forward to working with Donald Trump at this tough geopolitical moment, recognising that 77 million people voted for Donald Trump. He got more votes from young people, African Americans, Latinos than the Republican Party have got for some considerable time. We have a special relationship with the United States. It doesn't matter who's in the White House or number 10.
But in Glasgow this afternoon, people were not pulling their punches.
It's unbelievable that a nation as big as America would vote in somebody like that who's got so much hate in him.
He knows how to get a crowd going and he knows how to get people excited, but after that he's got nothing.
I'm hoping that the democratic process in Congress will somehow restrain some of his wilder ideas.
As the 45th president returns to the White House as the 47th, the months ahead may give some indication of to what extent the rhetoric of the campaign carries through into action.
So as Donald Trump heads back into the White House, Gordon, what do we expect to see in those months ahead?
Well, before he even gets to the White House, the ceremonies are continuing in the Capitol. Of course, that swearing in we saw earlier happened in the very room that 4 years ago some of his supporters were involved in violent scenes after he lost that election. And here we are, 4 years on, him becoming president again. So what's he had to say? Well, that speech today was high on the type of language that Donald Trump likes to use. He talked about sending troops to the Mexican border to deal with immigration. He talked about gender identity. He talked about setting up an external revenue service to collect tariffs. That's relevant to us because of those issues like Scotch whisky. Of course, Sir Keir Starmer and John Swinney are keen to speak to him about that. The First Minister at the weekend was talking about how in discussions he'd had with Trump, he talked about his mother being from the Western Isles, his pride of his Scottish heritage and the hope that can be lent into. So, as usual, very high on noise from Trump in Washington. In practice, we'll have to see what happens in the coming months. Kellyanne.
All right, Gordon, thank you for that. Now, as Glasgow prepares to celebrate its 850th anniversary, the leader of the City Council is refuting claims the whole place needs a deep clean for its birthday and insists it has been spruced up and is constantly being cleaned. Susan Aitken also says grand plans for investments have been hit hard by COVID, the housing emergency and wider economic issues. Vanessa Taff has more.
It's a giant step in Glasgow's history, all 850 years of it. With birthday wishes, it'll be a year for the people. It's undergone quite a transformation since its last milestone.
When we had our 800th anniversary, which a lot of people in the city still remember, Glasgow then was a city suffering enormous trauma. The transformation in Glasgow in the last 50 years has been spectacular, but it's not complete. You know, that was a city.
The demise of Glasgow in the last maybe 20 years has been remarkable.
I think that is absolute. I completely disagree with that. I think Glasgow is as strong as it's ever been.
For locals, it's a set of mixed feelings about the state of their hometown.
Everything's absolutely filthy. There's definitely not as much getting done as was a few years ago. A lot of the empty buildings.
The traditions, the history, the music is what I come for. I come out for a week to Celtic Connections, and it's brilliant. So long may it rain.
users.
I suppose it's much better. It's much better. It's like every other city, isn't it? They get the good and the bad.
Could be improved, definitely, yeah.
What kind of things would you like to see improved?
Just more regular street cleaning and stuff like that, yeah.
Cleansing is an issue that's plagued the city. This was just along the road from where we spoke to the council leader. In 2021, an admission to STV that the city did need a clean-up.
And
so it's not filthy. What's your word?
I think Glasgow needs a spruce up.
Today, no such concession.
I hope that in our coming budget we are going to be able to invest in some of the areas which have struggled, particularly since the pandemic.
Will that include a deep clean?
Well, we clean all the time, and I think we need to make this absolutely clear. We are constantly cleaning the city. There are people out every single day, and we have deep clean teams in neighbourhoods across the city, picking up leaves and picking up litter and dealing with some of those ongoing challenges.
When the birthday bunting comes down, it'll be time to put up the decorations for the Commonwealth Games. The event, which will be pared back, will return to the city, along with the eyes of the world. What those eyes see could well be an ancient city with a rich history, or one in need of some TLC. Vanessa Taff, STV News in Glasgow.
Well, we heard earlier how Donald Trump's inauguration has been moved indoors because of the cold weather. But how cold will it be, and how is it affecting our weather here in Scotland? Well, Philip joins me now. And Philip, you've been looking into all of this. What can we expect?
Thanks, Kellyanne. Well, yes, the cold weather that's caused the change in location for this inauguration is this blast of Arctic air that's moved more south into mainland America than normal. Temperatures today reaching highs of -5 in Washington, D.C., but feeling more like -12 thanks to the wind chill. That cold air eventually bumps into warmer air towards Mexico, and it's the sharp contrast between these two air masses that is supercharging the jet stream. And a supercharged jet stream always pushes stormy weather towards the UK. And that's what's happening throughout this week. We'll see a low pressure system developing in the mid-Atlantic on Thursday, and that strong jet stream will push it quickly towards us, giving us unusually strong winds and heavy rain on Friday. Now, of course, we are still 5 days away, so things can change, such as the tracking of this low pressure system. But if it continues on its current path, it's likely this will be a named storm, and our first named storm of 2025. I'll be back later in the show with the full forecast.
Indeed you will. All right, thanks, Philip. Now, Scottish content creators are fearing for the future of TikTok after the social media site went dark for millions of American users yesterday amid a countrywide ban. But just 12 hours later, the app was back up and running after President Trump said he would issue an executive order to give the platform a reprieve, leaving its future uncertain. Amy Flett has the story.
It's a social media platform that's taken the world by storm. But on Sunday, for millions of Americans, TikTok went dark following a new law to ban the app over its alleged ties to the Chinese government.
I really love this app. I'm
just so sad. Yet 12 hours later, the app was restored.
So you're telling me that I just spent the last 2 days crying on here, and now this app is back in 12 hours.
It came as Donald Trump said he would delay the ban, leaving further uncertainty around its future in the States. But what does it mean for users here? East Ayrshire creator Millie Graham has over 2.6 million followers on the app and was labelled one of Scotland's most influential TikTokers last year. She fears what a permanent ban in the US would mean for her.
I was able to do content creating for 2 years, just fully content creating because I was making enough on there and I was able to be creative, because I think coming from a city and growing up in a wee village, you don't really get a lot of creative opportunities. For a lot of Scottish creators, we do get pushed on to the American side of TikTok, so we'll not have the same viewership as what we used to have.
Edinburgh-based band High Fade have gained a huge American following on the social media platform and are preparing to go on their third US tour.
For us, it was life-changing, to be completely honest. It did change a lot of the stuff, because we were just busking on the street, and then stuff started to get traction, and then we got an agent, and then we've been building our thing ever since. We didn't think that for a second we'd have videos that have got 7 million views or stuff like that.
And it's not just content creators that could be impacted. These pupils at Holyrood High School in Edinburgh feel their experience on the app would change.
If it was to have a permanent ban, it would have like a massive impact.
Honestly, just see the whole app kind of falling apart because America, the US makes a big part of what TikTok is.
I don't know how much I'd feel impacted by it, but I think my feed would definitely change.
But is banning the social media platform the solution?
You'll eventually get into some sort of app-based whack-a-mole where you stop the access and use of one app, but there are others that people use that then generates a huge amount of income or a huge amount of publicity or whatever. More and more people start using it, then that app becomes a problem, then you might want to ban that one for security reasons.
Well, the UK government says there are no plans to introduce a TikTok ban here. Many fear that an American ban could be detrimental to the app overall and hope there's still a chance for it to be saved. Amy Flett, STV News, Edinburgh.
A man is in hospital after being struck by a double-decker bus in Glasgow. Police were called to Melbourne Street in the Gallowgate area just after 6:30 this morning. Road closures were in place at Barrack Street and Belgrove Streets. A man has appeared in court charged with the murder of a 21-year-old man in Paisley. Robert McAnally was found with serious injuries in the Marie Road and Lochbroom Drive area on Saturday. He was pronounced dead at the scene. 19-year-old Jackson Miller appeared in court today charged with murder. He made no plea and has been remanded in custody. A £470 million permanent solution for the Rest and Be Thankful is being put to those who live and work along the A83. Travel on the road has faced disruption due to closure, diversions and convoys for over a decade due to landslips at the beauty spots. Proposals would see a cover put over the road and deeper catch pits built. Businesses along the route say they're welcoming the plans but insist they're long overdue, as Ollie Dickinson reports.
Behind its breathtaking beauty, the Rest and Be Thankful is a source of pain, delay and disruption for the motorists of Argyll and beyond. Sitting on the A83, a lifeline route that connects Campbelltown to Glasgow, drivers are often met with convoy, detour or delay as landslips cause chaos. This brewery at Loch Fyne say a long-term solution needs mapping out.
It just causes us endless different problems. I mean, obviously, I've got sort of delivery drivers going to and fro, but mostly, I suppose, customers trying to get to us, because when the Rest's being difficult, so many customers just don't come to this bit of Argyll. This solution should have been on the table 10 years ago, and it should be in place by now. It's just taking far too long to get to this point. But now that we're finally here, that's all kind of water under the bridge. We actually just need to get on and do this.
The plans would see a cover built over the road, whilst deeper catch pits would mean debris from any landslides can safely be channelled away from drivers. It's estimated it will take 4 to 5 years to complete, a change that can't come soon enough for hauliers in Campbelltown who rely on the route.
Obviously, we're against the clock a lot of times going into the city. We've got to keep legal and we've got to service our customer base. So it does impact us greatly when things go wrong. Obviously, we've got to use the old military road when it's available. That sometimes is closed as well, and it means going round via Cranelarich.
The Machrihanish coast sits at the westernmost point of the route. Investors have earmarked it for a £100 million injection into a new golf course and hotel. But all the funding in the world won't matter if visitors can't get there.
It is absolutely crucial that we get a solution, and it's crucial that we get it in place as soon as possible. I know these things take time to come to fruition, but being on the ground, we need this to happen really urgently. One of the considerations for any investors that we have who may want to partner with us is how do people get here and how convenient is that and what risk does that pose to their investment.
The consultations end on the 7th of February. Any objections to the plans could trigger a public local inquiry. Those who travel on the road just want a decision and a solution. Ollie Dickinson, STV News, Argyll and Bute.
All right, sport now with Rahman, and big games for Celtic and Rangers in Europe this week.
Absolutely, Kellyanne, and we've been speaking to players from both clubs.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith New Year Sale.
Good evening. Arne Engels says the Celtic players believe they belong in the knockout stages of the Champions League. Brendan Rodgers' side will guarantee a place in the playoffs if they defeat Young Boys at home on Wednesday night. Meanwhile, ahead of Rangers' Europa League match against Manchester United on Thursday, Conor Barron says they'll travel to Old Trafford with no fear. One of the reasons Brendan Rodgers came back to Glasgow's East End was his desire to try and take Celtic to the next level in Europe. On Wednesday, they have the chance to secure their place in the Champions League playoffs, and it's a chance the players are determined to seize.
Of course, as a team, I think we all feel that we belong to the knockouts, and we will do everything to go there.
You've spoken before about the atmosphere being unique at Celtic Park in European nights. Everyone says that. Do you think that can unsettle teams?
Yeah, 100%. And I think the supporters will be there again, and we will be there. So it will be a really crazy night, hopefully.
3 points for Celtic against their Swiss opponents, who've lost all 6 games in this season's Champions League, would guarantee their place in the playoffs, which would be a 2-legged tie for a spot in the last 16. Celtic go into Wednesday's game on the back of a 2-1 win over Kilmarnock in the Scottish Cup at the weekend, with Daisen Maeda scoring the winner for the holders. Rangers eased into the next round following their 5-0 victory over Highland League side Fraserburgh.
Is this the hat-trick for Cyril Dessers? Force wide, can he get in? Yes, he can!
Next up for Philippe Cromwell's side are Manchester United at Old Trafford on Thursday.
The team has worked really hard to be in a good position in this Europa League. They did really well in this Europa League. We know what Manchester United is. We know their level. But we're going to go there to fight and to show ourselves and to do something really special.
There shouldn't be a fear going into any game. You've got a job to do as a professional football player to go out there and play the best you can and play for the jersey, and that's what we're going to do on Thursday.
United suffered their 10th league defeat of the season at the weekend. Following their 3-1 loss to Brighton, Ruben Amorim didn't miss when criticising his team.
We are being the worst team, maybe, in history of Manchester United. I know that you want headlines, but I'm seeing that.
Steve Clarke's Scotland side will face Iceland and Liechtenstein in friendly matches in June. The Scots welcome Iceland to Hampden on Friday the 6th of June before travelling to Liechtenstein 3 days later for a 6 o'clock kick-off. Meanwhile, Michael McArdle has been appointed interim head coach of the Scotland women's team. The SFA's head of elite women's football takes over from Pedro Martinez-Losa, who was sacked last month. To rugby news, and Scotland captain Sione Tuipulotu is devastated after a freak injury in training ruled him out of the upcoming Six Nations. His Glasgow Warriors teammate Scott Cummings could also miss the whole championship after suffering a broken arm. Jamie Borthwick reports.
Day one of Six Nations preparations, but Scotland camp began with news of a huge injury blow. Sione Tuipulotu, one of the form centres in the world and leader of Gregor Townsend's team, ruled out after undergoing surgery on his pectoral muscle.
Again, it was just one of those. He put his arm in a funny kind of position and just felt a bit of a twinge. So it was one of those. It was no one's fault. It was just one of those things that happened, and it's very unfortunate. And he's obviously devastated as much as we in Scotland are that he's not available for the next few weeks. You know, what Scotland do next, I think it might present an opportunity, and hopefully it does for Stafford McDowell. Hopefully there'll be a new duo. The Hughie McDowell combination now can step to the fore, and we've full faith in that Stafford can fill the big boots that Sione has.
Co-captaincy back to Finn Russell and Warriors flanker Rory Darge.
And he just brings other people with him. He doesn't need to shout and roar or bang doors. He's very quiet about how he goes about his business, but he's a very effective leader. So I said I look forward to it, and it's great that he gets the opportunity to co-captain his country.
Scotland's Six Nations kicks off at home to Italy on February the 1st. Townsend will be crossing his fingers no other of his key players gets hurt before the championship gets underway. Jamie Borthwick, STV Sport.
And finally, tributes have been paid to Jimmy Calderwood, who has died at the age of 69. Jimmy was a successful manager at Dunfermline Athletic over 5 years before becoming boss at Aberdeen, then Kilmarnock. He was diagnosed with dementia in 2017.
I think the fans appreciate his style of play. There was always a good team to watch, no matter what club. It was always an attacking system that he tried to employ, and We try to win the games all the time, and the fans, that's what they want to see. That's what they want to see, and that's what he did.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith New Year Sale.
Caroline, Jimmy Calderwood was a great guy, a great character, and he really is going to be sadly missed.
Oh, indeed. All right. Thanks very much, Rahman. All right, that takes us to the weather now with Philip.
A breezy morning will be followed up with a flurry of fresh delights for lunch. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Hello and a very good evening to you. Well, for the first half of this week, things are remaining generally quite quiet, with very little difference day by day in terms of our weather. Come Wednesday, we will see a low pressure system starting to sink southwards across Scotland, bringing with it some showers, mainly confined to the north and the northwest, however. It's not until we get to Thursday that we'll start to see a change to our weather and a signal of more unsettled conditions to come as this occluded front makes its way across the country, bringing with it a band of heavy and persistent rain. Hot on the heels of that front, we've got a deep area of low pressure moving in on Friday, and that will bring with it some very strong winds. The Met Office have already issued a yellow weather warning for Friday, covering much of the western side of the country for those strong winds. Back to just now though, and as we head through this evening, the cloud will continue to thicken. It does remain largely dry for many central, southern and eastern parts. Temperatures dropping to lows of around 2 or 3 degrees Celsius. Then throughout Tuesday morning, we'll see some scattered showers working their way in from the west, 1 or 2 of those moving through the central belt and eastwards. We will see some brighter spells developing later on in the afternoon from the west, with temperatures reaching highs of around 7 or 8 degrees Celsius. Then looking ahead to Wednesday, like I said, we've got low pressure working its way southwards across the country. Showers confined to coastal parts and highs of 6 or 7. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And that's all for now from all of us here on the team. Bye-bye.